Peace be with you. My name is Alan Kiesler. Welcome to the Institute of All Intelligent Life. Today is Friday, 21st of October, 2016. Juma Mubarak. And we'll wait a minute or two for anyone else to come on. Again, before I begin, I would like to request prayers for my good wife, who is having considerable health challenges right now. It's a very difficult time she's going through, so please, in whatever way you do pray or send good feelings towards her, please do so. Our consciousness, we're talking about consciousness, our consciousness definitely has an effect. Prayer definitely has an effect, and modern quantum physics has also concluded, quantum entanglement is the word that's used, that something can affect something instantaneously that is far, far away, and they don't really understand the mechanism by which that happens. But thought also, which is a real thing, obviously, we think, also has a profound effect. And when that attitude of prayer is there, it's very powerful. So kindly offer prayers or good thoughts for my wife's spiritual as well as physical healing and progress. Thank you very much. So today we're going to discuss consciousness, and specifically consciousness and creation. So, and we're going to now move more into the structure of the cosmos and the history of the cosmos. But the first stage of what we may call our history actually begins before time becomes a factor, because time is really more a factor of our or of other entities in this world, consciousness or awareness. So first of all, we will go back to what we were discussing earlier, that there is the one unlimited source of everything, which is conscious. In fact, it is a conscious being. Nothing that exists within our perception, within our reality, can not exist within the source of everything. This is just a very simple, logical point that usually escapes people's awareness because we don't think about it in this way, and we have a certain concept, wherever it may have been derived from, usually philosophical thinking. We have a certain concept of the source of everything, that because it is unlimited, and sometimes people even think it is not conscious, but it's unlimited, therefore we think that that original conscious source can't have any location. Similarly, we think because it's unlimited, it can't have anything that we experience as unlimited, or excuse me, it can't have anything that we experience as limited, such as form. So location and form are things which within our experience are limited. That is, if something is in some place, then it's not someplace else. And if something has a form, which in our experience, form is always occupies a certain area of space, so we assume that the unlimited consciousness also has no form, because any form in our experience is limited. So there are many other aspects of our experience that we deny could exist within the all-pervading consciousness, the original source of everything, because we can't imagine how those things can be unlimited. Nevertheless, that's a misconception, and although various interpretations have been given to statements made by exalted beings in scriptures or in revelations or in intuitions that great saints or prophets have had, that interpretation is faulty. For example, I'm just going to specifically say what I mean. When in different scriptures it says that God sees, God does things, sometimes the words are even used like the hand of God, and people tend to interpret those things metaphorically. So sometimes people say, well, God sees, but he doesn't have eyes. Or God does something, he moves something, he creates something, but he doesn't have hands. So we need to first understand what our eyes are. So our eyes, meaning these physical eyes, are not actually the seeing power. The seeing power resides on a deeper level of reality than the eyes that we have. So if we understand this point, we will have to conclude that what we have are also spiritual eyes, if you want to say that, or a different level of reality is the cause of our perception, other than these eyes. But that does not mean, and this is now getting a little difficult, but that does not mean that we don't have eyes. It means that we have another set of eyes, or we have another perception of vision, which also has form. So this may seem a little unusual, but let me just give an example. Just like my sweater here has arms. It has 2 arms. Why? Because I, namely the body, within this 2-armed sweater has 2 arms. So similarly, the eyes that we have in this body, or the arms that we have in this body, or anything about this body, it reflects the truth that we possess eyes, that we possess arms, and that the body is simply built upon that form of the higher self. So we have a number of bodies, this body, this gross physical body, and we also have a subtle body, astral body it's sometimes called. But beyond the astral body, just like the astral body is the basis upon which this body is formed, similarly the spiritual body, if you want to call it that, and some people postulate other bodies in addition to those 3. There may be 4, there may be more, but at least there is a body that we see now. There is a subtle body, which, as I've talked about before, is the body we travel in when we experience dreams or when we experience astral travel. So similarly, there is a body beyond that, which ultimately is our real body, ultimately is the actual form of the consciousness, the form of the spirit. So the reason I'm going into this little background is to describe a little more fully the unlimited consciousness and explain that even though the unlimited consciousness is all-pervading, exists everywhere, simultaneously right next to us, within our hearts, within our bodies, and far, far away in the transdimensional world, in the original center of all existence, the Isle of Paradise, the form of the transcendent, the form of the all-pervading consciousness exists there, as well as everywhere. So to us this may seem to be a contradiction, but that's due to our limited perception. So I think it's clear what I'm saying, but it may be difficult to grasp it. So therefore, I'm going to do what I've done before, especially yesterday or the day recently, when we get to topics that are very, very profound and difficult to grasp, maybe impossible to grasp with our mental facilities. That's why we have to go to a deeper level of consciousness, or a higher level of consciousness, in order to grasp what I'm saying. So I'm going to request everybody to take a minute. This is for my benefit as well as yours, and do 1 or 2 deep breaths. Just reflecting on, meditating on in a prayerful mood, asking for help to be able to understand this point. Please join me. We will inhale slowly. Doesn't have to be 8, but that's what I do, the count of 8. And then exhale slowly to the count of 16, or about twice as long. And as I explained recently, while doing that deep breathing, no need to count 1, 2, 3. One can, if one is happy with that, chant a name of God and just count on your fingers the number of times. So you don't have to say 1, 2, 3. You can say Allahu, 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 or any name of God. So please, I'm going to do it one more time. You can either count or you can recite the name of God that is comfortable to you and meaningful to you. So one more time. Inhale deeply to a certain number of times of one name of God or a number. So again, I want to stress that the attitude is what's most important here. The attitude is not to try to figure it out or to, try to get my mind around it. The attitude is a prayerful attitude or a meditative attitude. Let me receive the truth, or let me receive something that I may not have thought of before, or may not have understood before, or it may seem quite contrary to what I've thought or understood before. But let me create that mood or that mentality, that attitude within my awareness to receive a truth rather than to figure it out. So let us develop that mood or that attitude. And again, that deep breathing facilitates that attitude, that peaceful but very awake and aware attitude. And I'm going to repeat what I just said, that the original source of everything, what we may call God or Allah, that original source of everything, which is undoubtedly unlimited consciousness, all-pervading, exists everywhere, that reality, which is beyond the mind's ability to understand naturally, we can at least understand some things about it by this process that I'm describing. And we should know that the unlimited consciousness exists not in only one location, but simultaneously everywhere, yet that does not mean it is not in one location in its original form, in its original personality, we can say. Because just as we can understand God must have consciousness because we have consciousness, where else would our consciousness come from? If God does not have awareness, how do we get awareness? So similarly, if God does not have form, where does form come from? Where does our idea of form and our own experience of form come from? And we have, of course the word can be defined in different ways, but we have personality, we have individuality, so our own sense of identity of being a conscious entity, that means that God, or the original source of everything, must be the source of that also, so that original source of everything must also have awareness, identity, personality. So that's the first point I wanted to make today. This is going to be our final class on consciousness, so I wanted to get this very, very clearly put out there. And now we're going to move into the next stage, or next point of this discussion, which is, again, this is something that may be very shocking, even unusual, quite different than our usual perception of things. But as I've explained before, within the trans-dimensional existence, there are millions and billions, I can't count, you can't count them, but there is a huge number of huge spheres, or shining worlds, maybe is a better word. Although the way I perceived them, they looked spherical. I don't know if that was just a perception. But each one of them is huge, and each one of them is eternal, and each one of them, we can say, has a personality, or a personality is the person who's in charge of overseeing, experiencing that body of that vast sphere. And, as I explained a couple of days ago, each one of those spheres is inhabited by an unlimited consciousness. So some people may immediately object that what you're saying, there are many gods. No, there is only one original source of everything, but that original source of everything is so powerful that it can, and again this is difficult, it can not really create, because we're talking about eternality, and creation usually implies within time. So create is probably the wrong word, but it can exist along with, let us say, aspects of itself, or expansions of itself, that also possess their own individual unlimited consciousness. So this is the second point I was wanting to make today. And each one of those eternal, unlimitedly conscious beings, which reside as their central place in one of those spheres in the transdimensional existence, they are also individuals. All right, so now that we've got that aside, we can go to the next point, which is that just like we are individual limited conscious beings, we are individual consciousnesses, which has, presently we can not deny that we have limited consciousness. As I explained a few days ago, our consciousness pervades our own body. Each one of us experiences our own body as the field in which our awareness exists. So just as we now here experience this sort of limited consciousness, it does not mean that we will one day become the unlimited consciousness. This is a little upsetting to some people, because often people have the idea that, okay, my consciousness is limited now, that's okay, but one day my consciousness will become unlimited. And in one sense, that's possible, or that's true. But in another sense, it's not, because we will always remain dependent on the original source of all consciousness. So therefore, our consciousness can never really be unlimited, except, in one sense, if we want to have unlimited consciousness, the original source of all consciousness can grant us some sort of unlimited consciousness, if that's our desire, because God can do anything. So in that sense, we can say we could achieve unlimited consciousness, but still we're going to be dependent. So we can never achieve the state of true unlimited consciousness, which can be possessed only by one being, which is God, the original source of everything. So if we accept this truth, that we exist, our identity is to be limitedly conscious, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, which I'll explain in a moment. But within those brilliant shining spheres in the transdimensional existence, there also exist many, many, unlimited numbers practically, of beings of limited consciousness, like ourselves. So simultaneously, there exist beings of unlimited consciousness and beings of limited consciousness within those transdimensional worlds, or those transdimensional shining spheres that I've described. Okay, is this getting difficult for some of you? I hope it's not too troublesome, but if it is, you can pause and please do some breathing exercises, do some meditation and prayer on this subject, and I think if you're sincere, you will be able to see that this is possible, even though it may be different than anything we've ever experienced or thought of before. Okay, now I want to talk about time. Again, this is very difficult for us to conceive of because we live within time. We experience time, I should say, and we think about things as happening within time. But we should understand, even if we don't comprehend it with our mind, try to accept this idea into your awareness if it seems something new and different, that time doesn't exist everywhere. Time exists only within our consciousness, or within our way of viewing reality. And that doesn't mean that things don't happen without time, but it means that what we experience as time is a product of our own awareness. And the limitations that we experience as inseparable from time, those limitations don't exist in that reality which is outside of time. As I've explained previously in this class some time ago, that the limitations of time mean, above all, things deteriorate. Time means, for us, that things grow old, things fall apart. So that understanding of time, which is the experience that all of us have all the time in this world, that aspect of things happening, namely deterioration, which is our experience of time, that doesn't happen in the transdimensional world. So things in the transdimensional world are eternal. Within the transdimensional world, there is the original source of everything, which is located in what I have called the Isle of Paradise, the geographical center of infinity. That phrase is a very interesting one, a very wonderful one. So, and surrounding, you might say, that geographical center, there are unlimited numbers of worlds or realms or spheres which also possess existence eternally outside of time. And those spheres are also inhabited by one central, unlimited conscious being, and a huge number, practically according to our understanding, an infinite number of beings like ourselves who have limited consciousness. Okay, now let's come to the creation of time and the creation of this world, just as a principle, you might say. So there are many, many beings who are much, much more powerful than we are. That isn't difficult for us to understand. We can just, for example, see the sun, and the sun is obviously much more powerful than we are, at least in terms of just the light and heat that it puts out, the size. So the sun, as I've explained before, also has a consciousness, has a personality pervading it, or its predominator, you might say, its ruler. The person who is in charge of the sun is obviously, in some ways at least, much more powerful than we are. So similarly, there are beings of virtually unlimited power, in terms of our awareness at least, like the galaxy. Our entire galaxy is also pervaded by consciousness, and there's a unitary consciousness which is the predominator of our galaxy. So now this is a very, very important point, which may be strange. Again, it may be something we've never heard before. But this term galaxy means something a little different in extraterrestrial sources. For example, the Law of One, I've mentioned before, the Law of One series of books, 4 books that you can easily find on the internet, and you can look them up. Just do a search for Law of One. So according to the Law of One, the multiple galaxies that we experience, each one of those galaxies has a consciousness, and of course a very, very powerful consciousness. And those galaxies are defined in this way, not the way modern astronomy defines a galaxy, but the definition of a galaxy in the extraterrestrial parlance that I'm using now, introducing perhaps to you now. The galaxy means that realm within our awareness, our dimensional existence, that realm which is pervaded by, and in fact created by, one of those beings who, as I had said before, the word logos, the Greek word logos, is used. That being is associated with a certain galaxy, which is the result of its activity. So, again, people may immediately object, wait. God is the creator of everything. How can you say this other being created a galaxy? Well, yes, ultimately God is the creator of everything, but that does not mean that nobody else can create anything. It means that through the power of God, somebody else can create something. So this is, again, maybe difficult, and if it is, please take a moment, take a deep breath, pray, be open to the possibility that maybe there are things that exist that we weren't conscious of before, or there may be even things that exist that appear to be contrary to the ideas we had before. But please be patient with me, and I'm only repeating what I have learned from extraterrestrial sources, and investigate the possibility that this can be the case. So what I'm saying is that these sub-creators, if you want to use that word, but they're dependent. So they're not really creators in the sense that God creates as being the source of everything, the ultimate source of everything, because all of these sub-creators are dependent for their not only creative ability, but for everything that's involved in creation. They're dependent on the original source of everything. But this is a reality which we will have to accept when we come in contact with our wider family of space brothers and sisters, extraterrestrials, because in that level of awareness, it's common knowledge that different, very, very powerful beings can create things, just like our sun, in a very real sense, creates the planets of our sun. So similarly, the original logos, or the sub-creator of our galaxy, creates the suns, the stars. So every one of these logoi, which is the Greek plural of logos, every one of these logoi, every logos, has a galaxy associated with it. And these galaxies can vary tremendously in size. And some of the galaxies may be much, much smaller than our galaxy. Our galaxy is pretty large, even though as we view them in space, we may think all the other galaxies are about as big or bigger or close to as big as ours. But a galaxy in this definition does not exactly mean the same thing as a galaxy as our astronomers define them, but it can be a fairly small area. Maybe, as little as one star. If a logos decides, because logoi have completely free will, if a logos decides to make a small galaxy consisting even of only one star, that's possible, that's imaginable. In other words, the possibilities are unlimited as to what a logos may choose to do. And a logos may choose to create a galaxy that's much larger than ours and with different features. And in fact, those galaxies have different sets of laws, you might say. The logos has the freedom to create a galaxy. Maybe we should use the word universe because it's more compatible with our usual understanding. But each logos has the capacity to create the basic laws of that galaxy, the basic physical laws, as well as the basic laws of consciousness, the way consciousness will act within that galaxy. So we must become aware of this if we're going to really understand the history of reality, that this is a very fundamental fact, that different galaxies exist. Different galaxies are created by different logoi, or different sub-creators, and all of that happens outside of time. In other words, not only does the transdimensional world exist outside of time, but the early stages of this reality also exist outside of time. Why? Because time is the product of the awareness of lesser beings like ourselves. So I'm just going to end shortly, but let me repeat one more time that there is the original consciousness, the original unlimited consciousness, which is the source of everything and which everything else is dependent upon. And there exists a place, not exactly in the sense that we think about place as having some sort of limitations, but it's definitely a place where that unlimited consciousness has his abode. And I say his because that being is a conscious personality. Not to discriminate against the feminine gender, but if I say it, as many people do, in fact many people think the unlimited consciousness must be an it, because they don't want to limit it in any way, and sometimes I use the word it also, but actually that unlimited consciousness is a person, a personality. Therefore, if we use it, we may think of it as impersonal, so I'm using the word he for it. So he lives in a certain place, and that is the central Isle of Paradise. In addition, there are unlimited numbers practically of other transdimensional worlds which also exist in eternity and are totally beyond the limitations of time and space as we experience them. And then there are logoi, sub-creators, who have the freedom to choose how they will create a world, a galaxy. And that galaxy then becomes the place, you can say, where time comes into existence. And I just want to conclude by explaining that very, very briefly. That process of time coming into existence it happens like this. The Logos creates stars, and the stars, although it's a little more complicated, I'm simplifying it, the stars create planets, and on those planets a new type of reality comes into being, which is multi-dimensional, multi-density, and the first density of awareness or consciousness, which is called first density, is like the existence, we would say, of rocks or of matter, which have no life in the sense that we usually understand it, but which have awareness on a very low level. And that matter, that mineral stage of existence, becomes gradually conscious, and that is the source of what we call time. So time then comes into existence after planets which have mineral existence, which becomes aware, and those beings become aware of time, and that is the source of time. So what we've described up till this point, maybe it's not properly called history because it's outside of time, and we usually think of history as the events happening in time, but then is when time begins, what we experience as time begins, and I'm not going to go into any more detail now, but gradually the other densities of existence also come about. And that's what we are, the third density of existence. The second density of existence is more like animals, and we are the third density of existence, which is human awareness, and then the fourth density of existence, which is actually what our planet is moving into now, and the fourth density of existence is what we maybe would call awareness on a telepathic level, or a what we consider psychic phenomena, such as seeing something at a distance, being able to move something at a distance. Those phenomena are part of fourth density reality, which all of us who are on this planet now, we can and we are moving into that fourth density of existence within time, or existence which creates time. And that is what we are going through right now. That is what our planet is going through right now. And this is this great transformation, this great change in human history that is coming at the end of this cycle, where we all have the opportunity to become fourth density beings. Okay, I think I've gone on long enough. It's been a little over half an hour, and we will go into these very, very important points further, the densities, and I will talk about that not tomorrow, because tomorrow is Saturday and we will be having an Urdu class, which I'll review some of what we've done this week, and then we'll have a chat. But for today, I will just look now at if there are any questions about this very, very profound discussion we've had today, very, very deep, very, very different perhaps than the things we have experienced, because this sort of knowledge has not been widely disseminated on our planet among our species. So I'm going back to the beginning here of the comments. And well, we have a comment, I don't know how you like Pakistan anyway, you're so different from your country. I'll talk about that tomorrow maybe. I don't want to get sidetracked right now. We can talk about things like that tomorrow when we're not going to have a specific limited topic to discuss. Imran Javed Allahwala writes, it's true our consciousness will be permanent. It is narrated in Quran. Yes, and as I have said yesterday and previously, this idea that our consciousness somehow ends at the time of death is a very strange idea, very unusual idea that has become widespread on our planet. And it's very, very widely understood, known without any question. People know that consciousness exists after death. And as I've said before, it's only because we have been intentionally misled. Our so-called educational system, our so-called science, is really a system of misleading us, not of leading us into truth. It's a system that has been devised to keep us under control, to keep us in ignorance so that we can be more easily controlled. So yes, our consciousness certainly is permanent. And let's see, any other questions related to our discussion today or comments? I guess not. So this is a little unusual. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong here, but I can't see any other comments or questions relating to our topic today. So we will just end the class then. And I want to repeat that I am in, from a material perspective at least, I'm in financial difficulty. I do need income. I have very limited income from Social Security that retired people in the United States get, and it's not really enough for me to do what I need to do in this course. I need a certain amount of technological background and expenses. So if I'm going to be able to continue teaching like this, I will need some income, And I request everyone who hears these classes to kindly help me. If you feel you've gotten some benefit out of this class, please give a donation. I think that this sort of knowledge is very hard to get usually. Even in universities, you definitely will find such knowledge to be very difficult to find. So if you appreciate this, kindly go onto the website www.allintelligentlife.com, and you can click on the give a donation or pay tuition tab, and you can there give a donation, anything from $2 to $1,000, whatever you want in between. There are different amounts, but I do require that to be able to continue teaching like this. Let's see, we have a new comment here from Salman Shah. O company of jinn and men, if you can, that you may go out of the boundaries of the heavens and the earth, then do go. Wherever you will go, his is the kingdom. Yes, thank you very much. That's exactly what I've been saying, that there are many realms of reality outside the boundaries of the heavens, beyond this outer space that we see through our telescopes. There are many, many other realms of reality. But wherever you go, his is the kingdom. Yes, there is the same, only one original source of everything, to which everything belongs, on which everything depends. And, of course, our ultimate goal is to attain the presence of that original source of everything. So thank you very much. I look forward to the Urdu chat tomorrow. Somehow the Urdu chats always get much more interesting and seem to have many more views and seem to have many more participants with sometimes a lot of fire, a lot of emotion. So we will be willing to talk about Pakistan tomorrow also. This question that was raised today, why is Pakistan special to me? I'll be willing to talk about that. I will just briefly review in Urdu what we have been discussing this past week, and then we will have a chat. And Salman Shah has written again, the specific word that is mentioned is Sultan-i-Mubin, that is interpreted as immense power. Very good. Even many, many other beings have what seem like immense power to us. The power to create a galaxy. That is the power that is not inherently possessed by, it's given by God, but these beings have that power given to them, immense power, to create a galaxy. So what to speak of the unlimitedly, inconceivably immense power of the original source of everything, God or Allah. Okay, thank you very much. And I do want to conclude this class by reminding everyone, please pray for my good wife, who has been experiencing very, very intense and unbearable pain. She has rheumatoid arthritis, which can be extremely painful, as those of you who are familiar with the disease know. So kindly offer your prayers for her well-being, for her spiritual as well as physical well-being. And I hope that because she's sort of dependent on me, I have to take care of her when she gets in these very, very difficult situations. It's not possible for me to travel, so I hope that she will recover, and I pray she will, and please pray with me that she will, because I do plan and want to visit Pakistan again in the near future, and I have many requests to visit Dubai, visit England, visit Malaysia, so I would like to travel again, but it will be dependent on my wife's recovery, so please pray for her good health. Thank you very, very much. May God protect us all.